Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if the guy
financial autonomy is important.
Exactly.
Because you can't care for someone else if you can't care for yourself.
Exactly. And that's what I was going to say. If he's going into it looking for a wife or just to date around, I guess it doesn't matter. But if you're wanting to settle down and thinking of your future, those are the emotional maturity. No emotional baggage from any other relationships or anything.
So that means you got to go through the forgiveness process for previous relationships.
Yep.
And then,
okay. Again, financial stability. And this sounds crazy, but grooming, shower, shave,
wash
wear deodorant,
your behind,
exactly. Take pride in your appearance. Not so it's, you're conceited about it, but just take pride in your appearance. Take the time to groom and look and smell good. Women are always expected to look good and smell good and be pretty. It applies, the same thing applies for men. To men, it's not a double standard.
Now, I want to, before you pass over that, I want to touch on this because one woman wrote in, we have not done this show yet, but one woman wrote in and asked why is it that men can demand the physical perfection out of a woman and yet demand so little out of themselves in terms of is physical appearance and this is an honest question, is physical appearance equally as important to women as perhaps it is to men, or do you think it's in there in the mix, but oftentimes women can look past it to the deeper qualities just because they're more emotionally evolved than men?
I think that's the expectation. Women always, I feel, are expected to accept the standard shouldn't be as high for the men as it is for women. Does that make sense? So, like I said, we're always expected to be fit and look good and our makeup just right and smell pretty. And then a man, if he's a couple of pounds overweight or he's not, somehow it's okay. Just accept it, honey. He's a good person. Okay. And I'm not saying to be superficial and just look at the outside. But, again, when a man is looking for a woman, those are one of the things. Grooming and taking care of themselves, because that's another form of self-love. If you're eating right and exercising, it's a form of self-love. So you'll be able to love someone else if you take the time to care for yourself.
And I think being fit to care for yourself, not just financially, but physically. If you're not taking care of yourself, how are you going to inspire those around you to take care of themselves? Yeah. Let's talk a little bit because we've only got about 12 minutes remaining on. Can you believe that time flies?
So much fun.
This is unreal. This is one of our longer podcasts, but I think it's one of those things that there's a lot of meat in this that you kind of have to cover. And I really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure.
It means a lot to me because I've been trying to get the ladies on in the cave, and it's not that easy to take time out and do. Have a family and then do a cave show. It's a lot more difficult. But thank you. So
thank you for asking.
Now, when you look at the long-term cultivating of a long-term relationship, we've established that emotional maturity is important. Taking care of yourself physically. Are there other attributes that you think are must-haves, non-compromising things that need to be in place for a man to be ready for that long-term commitment? What?
Yes. One of the things is he's had to have had a life before. So a lot of times people will date and then their identity is that person. They're clean. They can't be without that person. Make sure you have other interests, healthy interests. So when she's not around, you're okay.
Yeah, you can do something.
Right. And keep your home tidy. Just basic things, make sure your toilet and bathroom is clean, if you're going to invite her over, she doesn't want to go into a funky place, and
it.
I'm just saying.
It. And essential oils. Put away the stinky socks.
Yes.
Spray that stuff down with some Febreze before she comes through there.
She doesn't want to go to an apartment or a home that smells like a dirty sneaker.
Like a sock.
Yeah. It's like, yeah.
Right. Okay, so obviously organizational skills, keeping it clean. What other things would be helpful? So if guys are making their top 10 list, so keeping your place together, actually is an indicator that you actually care about your environment.
Yeah, and it's kind of in my opinion, it's an indication of what's going on in your mind. If your place is a mess and all over the place, then that's pretty much what's going on in your mind is too much.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Okay.
And then have interests where you can talk about.
Have something that you do. Yeah. Right. So create you. Yeah. And then give the best created you to someone else, is what you're saying.
And not only that, but know what's going on in the world around you. Find out what interests her, you know, and share those interests. If it's something you don't like to do, just, give it a try and see.
Right. I know, I will speak personally, as many of some of the listeners know, that I have a great deal of fondness for you personally.
Oh, no. Oh.
I do have a great deal.
Naughty.
I have a great deal of fondness for you personally. And so when I will speak personally because it I can actually use this as an example because she's here in the room and can actually refute if I'm not saying the right thing, which I never talk about. I never talk about my relationship on the show, never do that. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting because now you are on the show, so we can compare notes and hopefully you won't destroy me too bad. But I think so how important is persistence from a man in garnering the interest? And the reason why I mention this is because, I think that friendship is critical.
Yes.
For me, I think friendship is absolutely paramount to beginning any kind of relationship. You've got to be friends with that person, not just because they're physically attractive. There's got to be something else there. There's got to be a peaceful conflict resolution. Right. Yes. We didn't mention that element.
Yeah, that's important.
Let me. We are actually.
No, it's fine. I'm not cold.
You're not cold?
No.
Oh, good. Okay, good. I'm just making sure you're not cold.
No.
We are actually outside, so you can hear the ambient noise of this area. It's almost park-like. We're at what is this? I don't know. Well, anyway, we're at a facility, and it's got some beautiful foliage and so forth. But back to our topic. So, looking at persistence. How important is persistence in letting a woman know that you're frankly quite interested in her?
When it's done properly, it's very important. You have two type of persistent men. The ones that are annoying and they don't give you space and they're constantly hovering and they're just annoying and you're not interested in them. So that's why it's annoying.
So let me ask you something. So then, is it because you're not interested, and that's the reason why it's annoying, or would it be annoying?
That's probably it. That's probably exactly right. Because when you're not interested, and they just keep on, and you're like, "Oh my word, just stop."
Okay.
So I think that's a good point. It is when you're not interested.
So then that could be that could be sort of a on or off. That lets you know. Sort of like if you're in the friend zone, move along. Right. If you are persistent and she's not coming your way, then that means perhaps maybe move along after a while.
Right.
In just citing our history a little bit, we have some compatibilities that are we didn't know. Just in terms of cultivating a friendship, we started out our friendship with quite a bit of openness, which was the exact opposite of the way that most dating occurs.
Right.
And I want to make sure that the guys recognize that not necessarily full disclosure to everybody that walks into your life, but being your authentic self.
Yes. Being genuine.
Yes. And actually being honest. If you don't like something, I mean, if you're talking about yourself, say, hey, I don't really like this particular attribute, but I suffer with, and then fill in the blank, or I have a challenge with, fill in the blank. Because what that does is that opens the relationship to where she can look at you and judge the total picture as opposed to living a lie, and then you get down the aisle, and then she's trying to change it into something else.
Right.
And you're not being who you were created to be. And I think that's a very big part of what you were saying. Have a life before you begin. Then the woman who comes into your life will also be a part of your life, but not be your life.
Right, exactly.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of people will stop their lives in terms of their forward progress to focus only on the relationship and not on being a human being. Right. And I think a substantive relationship is cultivated by two whole people who are living lives that happen to intersect in wonderful and glorious ways. And I think that is the thing that is that is what is the that's what's necessary. And I like that. I mean, doesn't that make sense to you? I mean, would you agree with that?
I do, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really important. And I'm thrilled that we're almost out of time, so I don't want to I want to make sure that we get a few final words in. How important is prayer, and how important is your faith in communicating that faith walk with your mate?
Extremely important. I believe if you don't have a relationship with the Lord, I don't see how you could have a relationship with another person, potential husband or wife. I just don't see it happening, because he should be leading, and he'll open your eyes to things maybe you won't see.
Right.
If you're in prayer, because sometimes, you're just in love and, he's perfect. But the Lord will show you, okay, you know what?
You got elements. Yeah. Right. And there is no one who's completely perfect. Right.
When you're in love and, the early stages.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult to see that. So prayer gives you some clarity. It also gives you some wisdom in terms of the approach of how you take each relationship and each step within the relationship. If you were going to give some advice to the young ladies who happen to tune into our show, and you had to give them one thing or to take away, and one bit of advice to take away for the men, what bits of advice would you give to our young ladies who listen to The Cave, and that to our men?
Be genuine.
Yeah.
It's so important to be genuine, because at the end of the day, let's say, so you pretend you were someone you weren't. You get married. A couple of years down the road, guess what? Your true self is going to come out, and that can get real ugly.
Yes, it
That's
can.
a whole other show.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We need to do that show. We need to do that show.
Seriously.
Because there are a lot of people who will, create the fake profile, not just on Facebook or social media or Snapchat or whatever the latest
but in person.
thing. But in person, they will create a false persona, and then have you believe that false persona, and you will buy that false persona, only to find out that once you get it home and open the package, that's not the package that you.
Box.
Yeah, you get a crazy genie popping out there, and the only three wishes you wish you had were they were gone, and gone.
Yep.
So. Anyway, Be genuine. Same thing for men and women.
Yes, exactly.
So that's a perfect bit of advice. We both agree on this. This has been Conversations from the Cave. I'm your host, Kirk Kennedy. I've been joined in studio by the lovely and beautiful and talented and obviously well-spoken Trish Mendez, who has joined me for the first time on the show. And hopefully this won't be the last time she comes to the cave. But thank you for joining me tonight. This was absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed having you. All right, until next time, join us on all of our social media outlets, including Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and iTunes. We'll be back next week at our normal time, 12 noon on Sundays. Again, Kirk Kennedy and Conversations from the Cave. Bye-bye.